Greetings, traveler.
The mid-season patch is here, and it is huge. Probably the biggest we have ever seen. Let's dive right in. First, we're going to talk about some changed heroes, because this is a really big win for Blizzard. We have been asking for so long to make a lot of these weak and unexciting heroes, make them stronger, make them more exciting, and that's exactly what they've done. So huge win. We're going to discuss all the changes to heroes that likely are going to make them way more fun to play. So first up, Edwin now only is in Pirate Elemental or Murloc lobbies. That's a little bit of a tame change, not that much, but that's just to make sure that you have Elementals and Gamblers to cycle for your hero power. So nice change, but again, not the biggest. We have Cenarius, Ozumat, and N'Zoth only in Beast lobbies, and that is specifically for buddies as well. So we're gonna cycle back to this change after you've seen the new buddy, but for instance, Cenarius has a Beast buddy, so that's just to make sure that you're not in a position where you have your buddy and then you're like, ugh, this is not a Beast lobby, I can't do anything with this. Then Zephyrus is no longer in Elemental lobbies, and that is because there is an infinite loop that you can do with Zephyrus buddy. When you sell it, you get a copy of something, and you can use that with Lava Lantern, and then you get another Lava Lantern, and then you sell your Lava Lantern, and then you play your Lava Lantern, and then you sell your Zephyrus, and then you get another Zephyrus, and then you get another Lava Lantern, and all of a sudden we have infinite money. We have an infinite money loop hack. So no to that. Zephyrus buddy is prone for abuse, so we might still find another way to go infinite with this, but this would be a very easy way to do it, and they've already disabled that. Then AFK has been restored to former glory. She now discovers a tier 3 and a tier 4. That might be enough to make her, exciting and playable again, because recently it's been pretty bad. So that's nice. That's fun. A tier 4, you get a bigwig pirate right on turn 3. That's pretty obnoxious, right? So yeah, looking forward to trying that. Then Cariel is now 2 gold. You give a random friendly minion +1/+1. But it upgrades after each combat instead of every time you tier. So while that is not the biggest change, that is still a lot more fun, because there's way more combats in the game than there are times where you level up. So not the biggest change, but still in the right direction, way more fun. And here we have a massive change. Drekthar now says, when you have space in combat, summon a copy of your highest attack minion. That's evil twin, sort of. That's a quest reward. You get a quest reward as your hero power, which is not, unheard of. We have Sire, but still, this automatically completes on turn 7. So it's like you have a free quest on turn 7. That's the 9 gold turn. That's relatively early in the game. And you can just copy a big cleave or copy a big shield. And, that is way better. Way better than what his previous hero power was, and also way more fun. So yeah, looking forward to messing around with this and seeing if it's just like too strong or if it's like just about right. And then we have Vandar, who does the same thing but for health, which is still in theme. Drekthar scales attack and Vandar scaled health, and now they do something with attack and health. So yeah, very cool change, right? Even if it's OP, that's still better than having just like unexciting, unpickable bad heroes. So huge fan of these kind of changes. Really cool. Because if it's too strong, they'll just tone it down a bit. They'll like give it to you later, or they'll do something where it's not like full health, it's like maybe half health or whatever. So really cool. Then Jiraxes, they're going ambitious with this. You need to deal 100 damage with friendly minions, and then you open a portal. So then your hero power essentially just switches, and now you get 2 random demons at the start of the turn, which is a great hero power that works exceptionally well with Urzel. That just gives you more chances to triple stuff, get a golden Felbat, and so on. So very cool, but it's hard to imagine, okay, what exactly does 100 damage look like? Does overkill damage count? I'm assuming it does, right? Probably if you hit a shield, you get nothing, which sucks. Maybe you get 1 damage. So yeah, I can't say yet whether this is good or bad, because I don't really have a good idea of when we have dealt 100 damage. But obviously, if this is early enough, that's pretty good, because all of a sudden you have a really nice way to feed your Urzel. You have more chance to get Urzel, and so on and so on. So yeah, very cool change. Then Maleficent discovers a magnetic mech for 1 gold, but you can only do it once you're on tier 4. which is again way better, way more exciting. It's a little like Alexstrasza, where you discover a dragon, she discovers a magnetic mech. You can get a Quartertrons, you can get your module to Divine Shield something, you can get a Wind Fury for like a geared guard, or, you know, way more fun, way more exciting. So again, really cool, good change. Then Onyxia still summons a Whelp for Avenge 4, but every time you would summon the Whelp, you also get +1/+1 on the Whelp. So it starts off as a 1/1, then you get a 2/2, then you get a 3/3, and so on and so on. So at the end, you're like summoning, you know, like 40 Whelps. Which is, you know, substantial. So yeah, now you actually have a reward for really, you know, putting tons of mana sabers on your board and just farming and you know, racking up the hero power. Whereas before it was just like, okay, it helps you with avenge quests or so, but you know, that's about it. Sourfang, minions in the tavern have +1/+1. This improves after you buy 5 minions. That's kind of like Daryl, I would say, where you just buy stuff and it has +1/+1, and then for a very long time nothing changes, and then you buy 5 minions and then you get +1/+1 again, and then you buy 5 more, and it's like very slow. So I'm not sure if they're gonna get the desired effect here, where it's like, yeah, massive shop buffs, because 5 minions is a lot. And, you know, by the time you're infinite gold with Bran and Rogers, you really don't care about this. I think, like, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's just like, oh man, if you go infinite on Starfang, you can just pop off with Urzul and it's really strong. Maybe. But my thought is more that I'll take the free +1/+1 to stuff that I'm buying, kind of like Daryl. And then depending on how much armor he keeps, right, that could be good, where you have a lot of health and you are winning your early fights because you get a free +1/+1. But overall, I would probably still rather have a hero that gives me economy so that I have more chance to go infinite, not a payoff once I'm infinite, you know, similar to a lot of other heroes. Then Pyramid is now Yogg. For 2 gold, you steal a random minion from the tavern and you double the health. That's fine. You know, it's not like Yogg is extremely exciting, but he's always been pickable. There hasn't been a meta where you just did not want Yogg. And this is way more fun because it's economy. You get to buy stuff for 2 gold instead of 3 gold. Makes your curve a lot better, makes you able to power level a bit more. And doubling the health is a substantial boost, right? If you hit like a 3 health minion early, you get like a 2/6 or something. That's a lot of tempo. Then we have Whack Toggle. She now still has that passive where you get 1/1 on each type, but instead of it being linked to the tier, it upgrades after you spend 10 gold. Now, when I initially looked at this, I said, is that better? Because it's kind of slow. But then I thought about it. I was like, okay, well, I'm going to spend 3 gold on turn 1. I'm going to spend 4 gold to level. And then I'm going to buy my stuff on tier 2. And then it's already +2/+2. So for tier 2 minions, it's the same. And after that, it's just scaling. So by the time you have your 4 drops, like you're probably at least have spent, you know, like 30 gold and probably close to 40. So then seems okay. Seems just more fun, right? I don't think it's a downgrade, which is nice. You're just getting more of a payoff. It doesn't feel like it's a little bit more like the Sarfang thing, where it's like, yeah, it's okay, but I don't think it's going to be like game changing, at least not as much as we've seen with some of the heroes. But, you know, they can't really hit a home run with everything, right? Like I think the Drektar and Vandar changes were very daring, very out there, but very appreciated. Like really cool that they changed it so much. Then we have Ragnaros, who, and I love this, Blizzard does this so well. Ragnaros, one of his lines is like, die, insect. And they made it buy insect, because now you have to buy cards instead of kill enemy minions. You have to buy 16 cards, which is a little like the StarCraft heroes. Like I think Artanis is like 14 cards, so that takes a while. So this takes longer. But now you're getting +8/+8 in, you know, and that's starting to be a real amount of stats. Ragnaros before was a little laughable. Now it's twice as much, I think. I don't really know. I'm going to have to feel this out, right? It could be that I'm just like, oh, wow, you know, that's kind of a lot of tempo and it hits at the right time, but 16 cards is a lot. That takes a while. And then Rakanishu now has a passive, your tavern spells that give stats grant an extra 1/1. Now, for this one, I was honestly a little surprised, where I was like, is this accurate? Is this supposed to scale or something? Maybe. We don't have, like, maybe I have like the wrong information on this, but I don't really love that my hero power is like cycling one of those spell power murlocs. It's like, ta-da! That's your hero power. I was like, oh, gee, thank you. Yeah, that just doesn't feel satisfactory. That doesn't feel enough. So I'm not sure if they're going to build in some kind of scaling here where, you know, every X amount of turns you get more than +1/+1 or so. But like, I'm not really buying spells early that are buffing my stuff. So now we are going to get buddies, right? So his buddy is probably still going to give like lanterns. So you're getting some buff from that. So for the buddy meta, maybe, but still, you know, questionable. And then we have probably one of the craziest changes. Syndragosa is now Millhouse. Minions cost 2. And you might say like, oh, that's a ripoff. They already have Millhouse. No. Like, this is great, right? Like, Millhouse is a fun hero in the right conditions. So turning another hero into Millhouse with some caveats, right, is good. I really like that. Because you're not picking Syndragosa. And I mean, if you did, you're not excited by the hero power. So now minions only cost 2. But it automatically freezes your tavern at the end of the turn. So rolling is more expensive technically, right? Because you're not getting the free reroll at the start of your turn. And the tavern only offers like 2 minions when you're on tier 1, and then 3 minions when you're on tier 2, and then 4 minions when you're on tier 4, and so on. So again, I'm having a little difficulty thinking, okay, is this then like better than Millhouse, worse than Millhouse? At first glance, it seems just better than Millhouse because rolling still only costs 1, and it doesn't seem like your tavern tiers are affected, so I think you could still tier normally. Again, right, we might not have like maybe that's a change that wasn't displayed here, but at first glance, it's like, okay, I think I can just like be okay with 1 fewer minions and just still rolling for 1 gold instead of 2 gold like Millhouse. So yeah, really cool change that they're going out there, which is exactly what we want them to do, right? We want to say, okay, take this really boring, unexciting hero and turn it into something. And then Sneed has been changed. He gets a pet, start the game with a 2/1 Shredder that summons the highest health minion from your hand. Now, I don't know how it does that. Is that like start of combat? Is that death rattle? Shredders are generally death rattle. So if it is death rattle, then there is high potential for abuse here because you could reborn it. Scaps could steal it or have multiples of it. You could combo it with Titus, and minions does not specify types. So you could hold Leroy. You could hold all kinds of Venoms. So if you could repeat this because it's a death rattle and reborn it and multiply it with Titus and stuff, there is high potential for abuse, but it just says start the game with a 2/1 Shredder that summons, and we just have the word Shredder to go off, which in the past has been death rattles, right? Like piloted Shredder and piloted Sky Golem and stuff. So yeah, we'll have to see exactly how it works, but if it is death rattle, there's probably some unethical videos coming your way later this meta with some second board that's getting summoned from the hand. Then we have Sylvanas, which is also a massive overhaul. For 2 gold, you discover a plain copy of a minion that died last combat, but you can only do that turn 3. Well, I guess it's also just, it's probably not that consequential, but maybe you can like triple a little bit too easily in the early game. But for turn 3, that's your 5 gold turn, and you can hero power and buy a card, which is perfect, right? So before that, you don't necessarily need it. Now it does say a minion, not a friendly minion. So I'm assuming that your opponent's minions are going to be in this pool, which is probably a nerf rather than a buff, just because it's going to be harder to triple, and there's a lot of the time that your opponent's minions are not going to be part of your strategy. But on the off chance that you fight a Bran early and they do have Bran on the board, and you could yoink the Bran, that's pretty cool. And also, if your minions aren't dying, right, if you're winning, then you don't have a chance to steal your own stuff. Same way, right, if you have such a weak board that you're not killing anything, their minions are not in the pool. So you can manipulate this a little bit, right, where you say, oh, you know, let me just be really weak here to make sure I don't kill anything, to make sure I can copy something. But that's a little bit out there. But overall, amazing, right? Again, they turned a very boring, unexciting, almost basically unpickable hero outside of quest meta for the armor, turned it into something where I say, yeah, I'll play that. That seems cool. That seems fun. So great change. Then Tavish. Tavish is a weird one. For 0 gold, you remove a minion from the tavern, and then when you have space next combat, fire it at a random enemy minion. And I love that wording. It doesn't say it attacks or anything. It's just like, fire it, shoot it. Fire Leroy's at the opponents. Because that seems what you're doing here, right? You're spending your turn rolling and you're trying to hit a Leroy or a Venom in the shop. Then you shoot that, and then during the combat, it's like, Leroy. Shooting Leroy's, which is a way, I guess, to have 3 Leroy's, right? Where you can have 2 on your board and then you shoot the triple in the shop and now you have 3 Leroy's. I'm not too sure about this just because it's a little bit like Lich King vibes where it's just like pure tempo, but you can't really use it for like economy or scaling the way Lich King does, right? I suppose you could have a death rattle that gives you value that you could shoot in the shop and then, you know, it attacks and dies and then you get some value maybe, but yeah, probably a more fun hero power, I'm going to be honest, right, than they had before, so good change. But I'm not sure if I like this kind of stuff, because like I don't really love playing Lich King, for example. I really like, you know, something like the Sylvanas change a lot more, where I have a chance to make triples and I get some money, get some economy. So we're going to have to see exactly how this plays out, but at first glance, it's more like a funny update, but I'm not sure if I'm going to be like a Tavish main now. Then the Jailer, for 1 gold, destroys a friendly undead to get a random undead. So that's good. The only thing I don't like about that is that it really becomes a type hero and it forces you towards that type. But that's fine, right? Especially for newer players, it's totally fine to have a little bit of guidance and say, hey, you are undead this game. You know, you've picked Jailer. Same way when you pick Alexstrasza, hey, you're dragons this game. When you're Maleficent now, like, hey, you're mechs this game. That's totally fine. And undeads have a lot of death rattle effects. So you could kill something like the Reborn undead, and now not only do you destroy that and you discover an undead, you also get the death rattle bonus. If you have a Titus on board, you get that ×2. So yeah, very cool if you can set that up. So cool change, good change. Then Yogg has assumed his final form. So Yogg has not been changed since the start of Battlegrounds, which is like 5 years. So he had a good run, but it's time. At the start of your turn, you cast a random tavern spell. That is perfect for Yogg, right? That could be anything. And I'm down for that. That is, for a hero power, that sounds about right? Get a little bit of gold sometimes, get a little bit of stats sometimes, you know, get a little bit of randomly eat your board sometimes, you know, just normal standard stuff. I'll definitely pick this and, you know, hopefully have a really fun game with him, right? And then we have Brucon, who essentially his only change is the water change, which is the one that gives taunt. It now also gives Divine Shield, which is, you know, very significantly better. You now have Shield and Taunt, which is not only good to just shield a big minion, but you now have much more control over your fight because your Taunt is going to block 2 hits, you know, assuming they don't have Leroy. So in the end game, you almost never use that option. You almost always use just the ping for removing shields or the double damage on, you know, a big shield or a cleave or something. So that's nice. Not the biggest overhaul, but just a nice little bonus. Balin now starts with the tier 6 discovery, which is, I think, something a lot of players have been asking for. Let us see what our big discovery is first, because then I can pick the 4 and the 2 based on the direction I'm likely going towards. And, you know, no real reason not to give players that option. So that's really fun. Then we have Galewing, who now has a new 1-turn flight path going to Westfall. In 1 turn, you get a random 1-cost tavern spell. So 1 cost, that's something like Pointy Arrow or the 3 health and taunt, but it could also be Gem Transfer over Confidence, right? Those higher tier spells. So I'm assuming that you have to be higher tier to get that, so you can't get an Overconfidence on tier 1, for instance. But you get Careful Investment too, so a significant upgrade to the one before. I will probably feel comfortable now on Galewing to just go 3 and then 1 and then 3 and then 1 and then 3 and then 1. Before we took 2 because it gave us 2 gold and it was just too bad to just settle for +2/+2. But now you can take the chance to get some extra money off the 1-cost spell and you can get back to discovering your minion faster. So I would say this is not only a buff, it also makes the hero more fun, little unpredictable. What are you going to get? Is it a good spell? Is it a bad spell? And, you know, sometimes you're going to get some extra economy on them. Then Cthulhu is now a 1 gold hero power instead of a 2 golds. There might have been a reduction on the initial stat count, but maybe not. It's, you know, +1/+1 repeats, you know, upgrades every turn. Yeah, I mean, you're going to be able to press that button more often. I'm not sure if it's enough to suddenly make me a Cthulhu player, because again, I am not getting any extra money. And when I'm playing a hero, that's really what I'm looking for. How does this hero give me extra money? Because if I don't get extra money, I can't really pull ahead of the pack. So it's no coincidence that all the top tier heroes, they have something that gives you extra money, right? Whether it's a Snake Eyes or a Cenarius or even something like a Rat King that you can discover for only 2 gold instead of 3 gold. So likely not that good, but who knows? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe like the 1 gold gives them just enough tempo where you can power level and stuff. And then George is also like, they said, you know what? 1 gold. Let's just do 1 gold. Which is crazy, by the way, right? Let me take you back all the way to when the game launched. I think George cost 4 gold. 4 glorious gold to give one of your minions Divine Shield, and people played it and people used it. That is the level of power creep we're at, where for 2 gold, they couldn't get anyone to play this outside of quest meta, and it was just for the armor, so you got a better quest, and then, you know, later on you could use it. Now for 1 gold, again, I'm not so sure. Maybe I'm not getting any extra money, and you guys know I like my money, so yeah, again, hard to call. Maybe we hit some critical mass here where it's so cheap that, you could level a bit faster, but doubt it right now. Still, much better, right? And more pickable. Definitely more pickable, these two now, but still not sure if I'm going to enjoy that. Kalefass, on the other hand, hey, look, that's extra money. Now, it is after you buy 3 minions, so that means that you won't get the extra gold on turn 3 to buy a minion, but you could use it to like coin buy careful investment or something. Because like turn 1 you buy, turn 2 you level, turn 3 you could sell your starter units and double buy. Now this is a little weird because oftentimes you're gonna turn 3 not buy a minion, you're gonna buy a spell in a minion. It's like Chef's Choice plus buy something. So it is a little bit delayed, but regardless, that extra coin is still going to be useful. So even if you're only buying 2 minions by the time it's turn 3, on turn 4, you could buy a 3rd minion, get a coin, and do something like coin sell tier if you have something like an alley cat on your board. So this is way better, way more fun than the one before. And, you know, later on, if you're cycling a lot, that's a lot of extra money. Just coins flying into your hand with, you know, buying and selling stuff like Tavern Tempest and Gamblers and such. Now we have Lady Vosh, who now gets a Spellcraft at the start of the turn, which is way better than before because you do not have to spend money on it. So the only thing worse than heroes that don't make money is heroes that cost money and don't give you a good return, and that was Vosh. Vosh was like, I really don't want to spend money to get a Spellcraft. This is stupid. So now at least you're getting it for free. It's still not really making you money, but at least you're getting it for free, which is a huge step in the right direction. Again, still don't really love it. Don't think I'm going to be playing a ton of Vosh, but more fun now, right? At least you're not actively like, oh, well, I'm not pressing this thing because it costs gold and now I have less gold to, you know, buy good minions or level and stuff. Then Enhanso now gives bonus keywords, which basically just means that you could roll Stealth or Venomous. Wow. Stealth Titus? Venom Reborn? Well, I guess it wouldn't Reborn with Venom, right? But yeah, that's a huge upgrade, right? You can get Venomous on something. And then Stealth is really specific, right? Titus is the big one. But this is going to give for some highlights. So I will probably pick some more Enhanso now, just for the chance that you get the game with the Stealth Titus. That sounds like fun. Crag now gets 2 gold instead of 1. So small buff, right? Not going to be game breaking, but it's more money. It's nice. Step in the right direction. Tamsin now no longer destroys the minion. It says give your lowest attack minion Death Rattle, give your other minions this minion's attack, which means you're not getting the stats, but you weren't really getting a ton of stats most of the time anyway. You were using this for the attack on a very high attack, low health minion. And now in the early game, you don't lose that minion. So you can actually press your hero power in the early game more often and feel a lot better about that, which is interesting, I would say. You can do more stuff now. It's probably still going to be mainly a dragon hero because of Taragosa. That way you can get a lot of damage on your Taragosas, but now you're not getting any health on them. So, well, I guess you could give your Taragosas this. Give your lowest attack minion this, and then your Taragosa has that. So if your Taragosa is your lowest attack minion, you can give it the upgrade in combat, and then your Taragosa has that forever, right? That's cute. That's cute, because then the Taragosa, you can buff the Taragosa. Okay, yeah, okay. Mess around with that in Dragon lobbies, I'd say. That could be fun. And then we have a bunch of new buddies for the heroes that weren't around last time, and also a bunch of old buddies that are being reworked for either balance reasons or to be just a lot more fun. You may also notice that I broke the world record for fastest haircut, but that aside, let's get right into it. So the first new buddy here is that of Rarran. It's fantastic bellhop. It's a pirate. That's always nice. We have a type. At the end of your turn, get a helpful card. Now there is a dev comment that says a helpful card can be a minion or a spell. It considers your current board similar to how trinkets do. So that's essentially Wisdom Ball. That's what they're saying here. This is Wisdom Ball on a stick. Here you go, repeatable Wisdom Ball. Now the difficulty here is that this is one card. Now it could be golden. All right, and you make your buddy golden, by the way, because once you click your buddy button once, you can click it again, but it will reset the cost, right? It'll be pretty expensive again. But then you get 2 more. So you're then faced with the decision, do I save my buddy and wait for the 2 other buddies to then make it golden? Or do I just get 2 buddies later on and sell this one? And that's going to depend on which buddy you have, because some of them are just one and done, battle cry or sell effects. But one like bellhop, you want to keep around to make gold. Right, so you can then enhance this effect with Drakari and get more of them, but still, it's a limited amount of cards. So this is really gonna depend on how they coded this. If it's exactly the same as Wisdom Ball, it's probably not that good, just because there's like a full shop, and if it then just takes a random card from that shop and it's in your hand, it's awkward, right? You're just like, oh yeah, right? Because there's a lot of like Wisdom Ball rolls that aren't so good. But if this is essentially heavily favored, so like let's say there's a much higher percentage chance that it's going to give you a 7-drop in your hand, or a Bran, or a Titus, or I don't know what, then suddenly this could be a really fun and really strong card. But we're going to have to see how they coded that. Buttons is very similar, but it's a death rattle and an undead. Now you'll notice that it is tier 5. So that means that the devs already think that this is stronger, and I would agree, because you can reborn this, you can enhance this with Titus, whereas Bellhop, it's essentially just Drakari and, you know, maybe a Lucifron if you steal that from Ragnaros. But this is, you know, you can get a hand full of helpful cards with this, right? You can reborn that, play double Titus, right? There's other ways even. You can Macaw this, right? You can trigger this very easily. So this seems far more promising to get an unethical board where you just have essentially 10 Wisdom Ball cards in your hand at the start of every turn. Then we have Mini Xeric. It's a tier 3 buddy, so a little cheaper. The battle cry is choose a minion in the tavern and transform into a copy of it. So the way how I think this plays out is you have a minion on your board, and then you roll a pair. The Xeric then copies that pair, you buy it, you have a triple, you have a golden minion, and now we use the hero power and we copy the golden minion. So this is great for minions early with a great effect. Let's say something like the Rally Naga that gives you a coin. Suddenly you have 2 golden Rally Nagas, so lots of money. Or the Pirate that gives you a bounty, something like that. And then you just have tons of economy. You're probably copying some stats as well. You can throw tavern spells on the golden minion to make it stronger and then use your hero power. So lots of interesting ways to get a huge tempo spike. And then later in the game, when you press your buddy button again, you get 2 more mini Xerics, and then you just copy whatever, right? And you make a triple, right? So you can use that for a golden 6-drop or a golden 5-drop. Perobius is Artanis's buddy. It's a magnetic that makes a mech golden. That seems pretty simple, pretty straightforward. Probably want something like a repair bot on the board, or, you know, hopefully beatboxer. Let's say you have 2 beatboxers on the board, but that's probably for your second batch of buddies. You magnetize on a utility drone, and now you have 2 golden beatboxers, because the Probius also then works on the beatboxers, so that's pretty cool. Then we have No Bundo. It's a tier 4 buddy. Battlecry, discover a tavern spell that costs 3 or more from any tier. So you're guaranteed, you know, you're not going to get pointy arrow in your discovery, so that's good. You definitely want Bran on the board for this, and it's an elemental. So you could cycle this with Lava Lantern. Sell it, get it back, play it, get like Golden Touch again, right? And it seems like interesting stuff, because once you have one good spell, you can then copy it with the hero power. As you can see, you know, buddies are designed to be synergistic with the hero power, so that's what we're seeing here. So it just seems like a nice value piece. I don't know if tier 4 is going to be the right cost for it, but regardless, you're going to want Bran and Lava Lantern for this, or Lava Elemental. I don't know what it's called, but that seems like a great combo. Then we have a tier 5 for Kerrigan. Battlecry, discover a Zerg, and set the stats to 6/6, and it doesn't morph. So you're essentially hoping for either the immune and the venom, the tier 3, or you're hoping for Ultralisk. Now, I don't know if this follows the rule of the hero power, because once you have the hero power upgraded to tier 3, you can't discover tier 1 Zergs anymore. So I don't know if Broken Horn is going to respect that rule. If it does, you're far more likely to get the good options. If it doesn't, you could get tier 1 Zergs, and that kind of sucks. So, but I'm going to assume that it follows that rule as well. So once you have a tier 3 hero power, you're pretty likely to get at least Ultralisk or the Viper. But you could also say take Baneling, and now you can, you know, pump the Baneling full of stats. You could run Macaw, you could run Titus, and that's a pretty cool thing to do. I've done that from time to time, but the awkward thing is that the Baneling keeps shifting, keeps morphing, and now it wouldn't do that. So seems like we could do some fun stuff with that. It is tier 5, so it is going to take a while to get online. Then we have Scenarios Buddy. At first glance, seems pretty bland. It's a dude that has stats for how much gold you spend. So it is in theme, right? I guess calling Malorn, but just the creature a dude is maybe a little disrespectful. Sorry about that. But yeah, it's just a big stick, right? It's like, here's a pile of stats and you spend gold and it becomes bigger. I don't think that's going to scale fast enough to keep up with other minions, but maybe I'm completely misjudging this. So this is just one of those cards I'm gonna have to play with, and then I'm gonna very quickly know, like, oh, I was wrong about this, or, you know, it's about right. Tychus Finley is Rainer's buddy. You get a battlecruiser upgrade every time you cast a tavern spell. That can go quite hard, because there are many cases where you can get, you know, more than 10 tavern spells per turn. Think of the Shiny Ring Naga Dragon that you then trigger with Greenskeeper or Macaw or whatnot. And now your hand is full of Shiny Rings, and then you just cast, get Battlecruiser, cast, get Battlecruiser, cast, get, like, that's a lot of upgrades. So that's a big Battlecruiser. That it should be, at the very least, fun, right? A fun buddy, lots of stuff to do, lots of cards flying in your hand. Then we have Othar's Buddy, the Celestial Archive. Whenever you buy a tavern spell that costs 0, get a copy of it. That just seems like a nice little pick-me-up early thing where you hero power, you get double careful investment, or oil if you've hero powered twice already. You just hero power again, get the oil. That'd be amazing. It's not going to be game changing, but just a little nice boost in economy and tempo. And that honestly could be really good. And then you just kind of ignore it later on, where you just get a little bit of a boost. You might even sell it. You could also combo this with the tier 1 Naga that makes spells cheaper. And then you just get 2 of them. That's could definitely be worth buying. Get like double Chef's Choice. And then just use that and snowball the game and play something else later. Lowe's Buddy is Stoneshell Guardian. At the start of combat, it copies the 2 leftmost rallies, except itself. So if you have multiple Stoneshells, they're not gonna like copy off each other, because that would be, you know, pretty broken. So this is just gonna be like, you have the tier 6 rally Quillbore, and then you put Stoneshell first. If you have 2 of those, you're just gonna copy both those rallies and get Giga Gem scaling. You could have the dragon that gives like a lot of stats, and you could proc it like that. So it really depends on what you have on your board, but obviously you're low, so you're gonna have a lot of rallies. You're probably gonna want Monstrosity. So yeah, tier 5 might be too expensive, but if you get this too early, it's probably gonna be way too strong when you're copying Bigwig or so, and you get way too much money. Then we have some changed buddies. So we're gonna go through some, I guess, unfun changes first, simply because these cards sort of belonged in jail. They were, you know, repeat offenders, very strong, just stupid. All right, so Sylvanas's buddy essentially warped an entire meta, because what people would do in undead lobbies is they would get Nathanos, and then they would use Grave Robber to kill off the Nathanos, get it back in the hand, and double the stats, and then double the stats again, and then double the stats again. And you could even use Rylak with Grave Robber to kill the Nathanos over and over and get it back. And it's just silly. Just stupid. Essentially, any form of exponential scaling is just going to be unfun for the opponent, because it's like, oh, you have a number I can't read. That seems good, right? So instead of the exponential scaling, we now just split the stats evenly. So if you start with 500 stats, you just get 250 left, 250 right, and that means that you're not able to just recycle this over and over. Now, how good is that? That's my reaction. It's tier 4. I'm playing it. I have to sell my biggest dude, and then I split the stats, and I make other big dudes, and, you know, maybe on a shield or a cleave or something. But my initial reaction is but I get why they had to change it, because the other one is, you know, game changing, just meta warping, way too strong. So yeah, all right, let's move on. Then we have Floop. I don't play a lot of duos, but this was pretty silly where you could just get so many high tier minions. So now it's every 2 turns, and it's now a tier 4 instead of a tier 6. Same with Goya. Instead of passing the minion and get a copy of it, you now pass the highest tier minion in the tavern end of turn, which is, you know, way worse. But the previous version also allowed you to make silly just golden 6 drops super early and stuff. So these are just balance changes that have to be done. Imperial Defender also just becomes less fun. It's a tier 3 instead of a tier 6, but it now only works 1 time. So Imperial Defender before, anytime you cast a spellcraft on something else, it also lands on the defender. But yeah, can you imagine that with the current form of Deep Blue, and you have something like the Rat Scale that gains attack, and then the Imperial Defender would have unlimited attack almost. So understandable. Now it only casts 1 time, but it can be any spell. But it's not really, you know, what are you gonna do? Like give this like 6/6 and taunt on something of like, yeah, huge bonus, right? So I guess you can cast Chef's Choice, right? That's probably one of the better uses for economy, but yeah, it doesn't seem too exciting, the Ajara buddy. Then we have Vol'jin, which is in that same category, just had to get neutered because it was game changing. So in demon lobbies, what people would do, the old Vol'jin buddy, essentially it became old Vol'jin. This was old Vol'jin's hero power. Old Vol'jin's hero power would swap stats from one minion to another. So the buddy then said, okay, when you swap, you gain the attack, but also the health. So what people would do is they would just create a big minion on their board, swap those stats in the shop, and then eat it with either the tier 3 imp or with a mind muck or whatnot. And then that minion would be twice as big. And then the next turn, they would do that again. And then that minion would be twice as big again. And what do we have? Exponential scaling. Good for the whole family. But, you know, not very fun for the opponents again, because you get into a position where you're fighting someone with unlimited stats, and that's pretty demotivating. So understandable, they had to nerf this. Now it says, give the minion to the left of this health equal to the attack, which is just tempo. But that's okay, because with Vol'jin, it's pretty easy to get a boatload of attack, right? You can still make attack permanent by swapping it in the shop and then eating it with Mind Muck or the Imp. And now you just have a very healthy or very high attack unit that then becomes healthy. So it's a nice little tempo unit, but that's kind of it. Then Shadowy Construct is in that same category. After a friendly minion dies, gain its maximum stats once per combat. So that's some decent tempo, because you can build a big unit with Terron, then you get your buddy, then you hero power your big unit, your Shadowy Construct also gets those stats. But before, what people would do is they would make a big construct, and then you could use Macaw on that, or back when Kel'Thuzad was in the game, you could have multiple constructs and they could ping pong the stats from one construct to another, and then it's just, yeah, unethical. Just, again, exponential scaling. You could, you know, go very, very big with this very fast. So they're really cracking down on it, which it's understandable, right? It's old stuff, right? So it's not stuff people are going to explore. The new stuff, I think it's okay if it's broken at the beginning, because it can still tone it down. But these things, they know it's broken. They know people are going to do like crazy stuff with it. So just nerf it. Otherwise, just no fun for the opponents. Hogger, I think, is the first change here where it's, I think, just like more a fun change. It's now Divine Shield. It no longer gains the stats, but you get 2 pirates, or you get an extra pirate, right, whenever it's refreshed. So as Hogger, being able to buy a pirate for 1 gold, effectively, you obviously want pirates in the shop. So getting this minion on tier 4, for instance, is going to drastically increase your chance for triples and getting Bigwig and getting the health pirate and stuff, the one that gives Battlecry a lot of HP. So lots of opportunity there. So it just seems like a more fun card now, whereas the previous one had to get nerfed. It says after you buy 2 pirates, add a pirate to the tavern, and that was just too slow. The initial version said whenever you buy a pirate, you get a pirate in the shop, and it was just like buy. It's just a lot of money was made playing Hogger. Hogger liked that a lot. But this is a nice change from the nerfed version. Then Millhouse is a very big change. Before, what you would do with Magnus, you would play it, you would buy a card, and then a card of the same tier would pop up in the shop, And you could abuse that with tier 1 spells. So let's say you have Nala on the board, or now a Matriarch, anything that has a beneficial effect with spells. You can go infinite on tier 1 spells, or almost infinite, because the tier 1 spell very often refunds the cost, where you play it. Oh, I guess that was with Nala, right? Where the Nala trinket, where now your spells were 1 gold cheaper. I think that's how you did it, because when I'm thinking about it, you run out of gold somewhat fast now, right? Without the Nala trinket. The point is that they didn't like that, or they just want to give you more reroll flexibility. You now get Magnus earlier in the game, and you get 2 free rerolls per turn. And then I'm assuming the golden version will be 4 free rerolls per turn. And honestly, that helps Millhouse quite a bit, because with Millhouse, you do not want to be rolling. Obviously, you want to be playing that elemental that gives you free rerolls, and this is going to help you get the brand, help you get those elementals. So yeah, seems like a fun change. Then the AFK buddy no longer buffs your entire board. It says at the end of the turn, give this minion stats to a different tier 3 minion. So that is a nerf in the beginning, because you're only going to get +4/+4, whereas now Snack Vendor, if you had like 3 other 3-drops on your board, you would get what is that, +4/+8 board wide. It would buff itself. It was just very nice. Now it's just 4/4 on top of another tier 3, but it means that you don't really need to keep a board of a lot of 3-drops. In fact, you actually only really want 1 or maybe 2 that you really want to buff. And if you can throw buffs on the Snack Vendor, all of a sudden you have something that could be quite worth it to keep around for the long run, because now you can make this like a 40/40, right? With like Tavern spells, and now you're just gaining 40/40 end of turn, slap a Drakari on there, +80/+80, and so on and so on. So you could have an end game build maybe with 2 3-drops, where you have Snack Vendor and then a 3-drop of your choice, and you just have extra end of turn effect. So that's an option. We're gonna see if that's gonna be something that people do. Veilstrass was originally nerfed, where it was just get some stats, which was decent tempo, but it wasn't as fun as getting dragons. It's just because people were just with Bran and just play the Veilstrass over and over with like Rylak and stuff. You would just get a handful of dragons, get a golden Caligos, and that was way too good. Now it's rally, get a dragon, which seems like a nice middle of the road. It's much harder to abuse the rally over and over and over again. Maybe you're getting 2 dragons right in 1 turn, and that's already nice, but not broken. So more fun and not broken. That's a great change. Glib is getting nerfed quite a bit. This was a crazy good buddy, and it might not seem like it that much, but this was a buddy that high-level players loved abusing, where you would just go infinite gold because you could just roll so much, and if you can roll so much, you're gonna find the golden brand, you're gonna find all the cheap stuff to buy, and very good. So now instead of that, it's essentially Toki hero power, where whenever you refresh, you get a minion of a higher tier, but it's on a Rana. So I mean, is that bad? No, I mean, you'll take that, right? That can get you your build faster. It's just not what it was before, where it enables these crazy infinite turns. Then the Cariel change now just improves your hero power at the end of turn, which again is fun, but at high level, I don't know. I don't think I'm picking Cariel, I'm gonna be honest. But I hope I'm wrong about this. I hope that Cariel is in this spot where enough changes were made, and then you can combo this with Drakari, and the hero power is now worth it. But the problem is that you're gaining a pretty fixed amount of stats where it's just not increasing fast enough, right? Even with like a Drakari on this. So I'm afraid that it's just not gonna be able to compete with heroes that just get extra money and get into those scaling strategies faster. And Hanso is now a tier 2 buddy instead of a tier 1, and it gains stats for every time you buy bonus keywords. Okay, so that's because now Enhanso provides bonus keywords in the shop as well. So now the stats are on the Enhanso buddy, which makes sense that they then make it a tier 2, because I do think that's better. It's easier to keep this around. The previous version, you essentially just used that with Anoyatron, because Anoyatron is Taunt Divine Shield, and they would get +4/+4 then, and that's enough for early game, and it was kind of okay. You get a very strong early game, and then you can level. This one, it's more a buddy that you keep around, and then you just, you know, it becomes bigger as you play the game. Nothing too crazy, just some tempo on your board. Jandis is a spicy change. So Jandis buddy was always like a little I just have you. I didn't want you. I wanted Jandis. You're sort of, you know, something I get as a bonus, but I picked Jandis because I wanted Jandis. Now the buddy says after you play a minion you've already played this turn, give your minion stats equal to your tier. Now, when I first read that, I was like, well, how often are you going to be able to play duplicate minions? But then I thought about it. I was like, wow, when I am playing like APM turns with bounty pirates, or I just have Bran, I could play a lot of shell collectors. I could play a lot of gamblers. I could play a lot of rodeo guys. And obviously you have the hero power. So the hero power guarantees that there's at least one unit, if you so desire, that you can play 2 times. So yeah, this says stats equal to tier. So if we're on tier 6, you're gaining 6/6 board wide, and then assuming the golden buddy is ×2, that's 12/12 board wide every time I'm buying a card that I've already played that turn. That's decent, right? That's sort of like, yeah. So I'm not sure if I'm overestimating this, but I will definitely mess around with this and hopefully get some really cool buffs going when you're playing an APM comp. The kill buddy now has divine shield. After your hero power triggers, gain the stats of the last minion you bought. So that's, I guess, just for elemental stuff or demon stuff if the shop is large. Other than that, it's not really that impressive. But it has Divine Shield, and even if you're not playing those strategies, you get a little bit of tempo and then you just sell it at some point. But if you go into Nomi and you get a huge amount of elementals, then you can really say, okay, let me time this right. Let me buy the elemental as my 3rd minion. Okay, now my hero power triggers. Boom, the Crimson Hand gets the stats. Then you play the elemental, you avalanche it, you get the stats again. So seems mediocre for a lot of stuff, and then really good if you go into elementals. Mukla is an interesting change. So before it would just give +1/+1 on bananas, and that's like, okay, fine, you just do that. This now says when you sell this, feed 1 banana to your, I mean, the wording is amazing. Feed 1 banana to your minions. After you cast 2 spells, improve this. So essentially what that means is every turn you get 2 bananas. So every turn, at least this improves once. You could also play other spells. And then it's going to feed 1 banana, 2 banana, 3 banana, 4 banana. So that's just a tempo tool where you're going to load a bunch of bananas on a minion that's not the crazy monkey. And then at some point when you need the tempo, you sell the crazy monkey and your whole board just goes banana, right? Which it's probably not game changing, but it's more fun. So, and that's all we want, right? We want more fun. Speaking of more fun, I love what they did with this one. This is the Panda Buddy Master Win. It used to be you now get 3 options instead of 2 and then 4, but you can tell if it's a tier 1 buddy, it means that they, made it as cheap as they possibly could. And people were still kind of like, whatever. I'm picking Panda because I want the Panda hero power, not because I want this thing. It was like, okay. But now, at the start of your turn, you get the buddy of your hero power. And oh my lord, that is cool. That is maybe too good. It is a tier 5, so you're gonna have to wait a while to get it. But now, not only can you think about, okay, how good would the hero power be this turn, you can think about, oh, how good is the buddy? Now, that is a knowledge check. So for a lot of the new players out there, especially that have never played with buddies, this is going to be like, I don't know what that buddy is. so just pick it, right? And you'll learn. It's a buddy meta is just experience, a knowledge check. So just keep playing. But yeah, really cool change. Love what they're doing with this. Same here. Chromie was very like, meh, I'll play it. Maybe I get Felbat. It's nice. I get some stats. Now you get 1 wisdom ball roll per turn. I love it, right? So I really love that design philosophy they're following, where they're just saying like, we want to make our game more fun, right? Just like more buddies that feel like they do something, not just something that you sell or you keep for 1 turn. So, if you get a wisdom ball per turn, you can make board space for that. I could find a place for Chromie on my board if she's gonna give me a wisdom ball roll per turn, right? So very nice. Then this one I'm not sure about. So it's Ozumat's buddy. It's now a tier 5 instead of a tier 2. So anytime you see a jump from like tier 1 or tier 2 to tier 5 or 6, they made it a lot better, right? So now it says after you summon a minion in combat, double the stats. That is very familiar to a certain monkey, a certain banana slammer that we have seen in the past. This works with the hero power, but you can do this with, base skill, right? You could summon with base skill and double the stats of that minion. You could just summon a big beast or so, but mainly base skill, right? So this is a little scary for that, where you could have a very big minion. Now, Ozumat is not an overpowered hero, and you still need to get to the point where you have like a big thing to summon. But it's just like we've seen this in the past, and it's created some problems, but I'm guessing it's probably okay, just because it's Ozumat, right? Like, what's an Ozumat gonna do, right? So, we'll have to see, of course. Then we have patches and upgrades. Also, I like this one, right? Instead of just battle cry one and done, it now is battle cry, death rattle, and rally. You get a bounty. That's like Bigwig, right? Rally, you get a bounty, but you also get it on battle cry and death rattle. So fun, super fun thing. You can keep that around definitely for quite a while. You could even use like Titus or Macaw on this. So just fun change, good change. I like it. Same thing with patchwork. Instead of just battle cry one and done, it's now end of turn, give HP. So that's a lot better. But you can't combo it with Bran. You could combo it with Drakari. I don't think it's like OP or anything because you're still not gaining that much. But in a right situation where you've lost a ton of health, but then you stabilize and stuff, it could be a nice amount of health. Future Sight is just better now. It's tier 5 instead of 4, but you summon a random creation, but you also get it in your hand. That's nice. Way more fun. So I like it. Okay, Rakanishu. This is the thing I didn't want to spoil before. So instead of getting lanterns, you now get random tavern spells that give stats. So within the context of this, the +1 on Rakanishu makes sense and it's kind of okay. But still, we're talking about cycling one Murloc being your whole hero power. I mean, it's just, I'm having a hard time being okay with that, man. If I was Rakanishu, I'd be a little depressed. I'd be like, I'm a Murloc. I'm one cycle of a Murloc. That's what I'm worth to these guys. So I don't know if he's going to get like 20 armor or something, but I guess we'll see. Then we have Tamsin is now a 5/10. That's nice. I hated that this thing would just get attacked when it still had 0 or not a lot. So at least giving it 5 damage is fine. Still not the craziest buddy, but fine, we'll take it. Okay, this one for Tavish is huge, right? So Tavish we talked about where he now shoots a minion in the tavern, it's gone, and then it just like, you fire it at the random enemy minion. But when you have Krabby on the board, you also get that minion in your hand. So you hero power it in the shop and then you get it. So it's a little like a kidnap sack where once per turn, for 0 gold, you get something from the shop. You know, not quite, you can't pick up your own board and stuff like that. But it's definitely, that makes Tavish way better, right? Now we have economy, and as you guys know, huge fan of that. Very, very big into getting stuff for free, especially in Hearthstone Battlegrounds. So it's, yeah. I'm just a little worried, like, what happens after buddies are gone, like, because then the hero power is like, meh. But we'll see. This is a nice change. Okay, so lots of text here. That is because summoning a random secret wasn't really that much fun. Now, the Street Magician enhances your secrets. But some of them are pretty good now. So let's cover that. The Venom Strike, when it's improved, has Reborn. And that is poison. That is not venom, right? So poison, if that survives, it just keeps killing stuff, right? Now it's 2 power and 3 health. So, I mean, power doesn't matter. It's not going to survive much, but just, you know, just in case. Then the auto defense, whenever one of your minions is attacked, give it a shield that takes 2 hits to break. So that's cool. They have the technology. We might see this recur, right? Where you have something like give improved divine shield. That might be in a future set because we know they can do it. Like they can put a shield on something that will last for 2 hits. So like the year is 2035 and there's like the 35 hit divine shield that just like bong bong. It's like, let's keep power creep. Let's go. We can do it. All right. Now we have Redemption. The better Redemption returns to life with full health and enchantments, which, yeah, that's very good. We're talking getting your reborn Goldrin back on the board, but you need board space for that. That's the issue. So like the Redemption is okay, but I think the better pack tactics is just superior because that one says whenever a friendly minion is attacked, summon a copy of it. So that one is as long as you just have 1 taunt. So that is the, you know, prerequisite for this. You can just copy anything, right? So huge minion with taunt. Now the problem there is that people can predict that and Leroy you, and then you lose one of them straight away. It's going to be a little tricky once people figure this out because you will copy your best minion and then they'll Leroy. But then you can mind game them and you can say, okay, instead of doing that, I'm just going to taunt something else. And now I'm going to use Redemption, right, on something else. So there's lots of things to figure out here. But this is exciting. It's a cool minion. Jailer now summons 2 random undead. You get undead, so I guess you don't keep them, right? You just summon them, because I was thinking the hero power, then you can use these to make the undead. But this is still a nice change because the previous Jailer Buddy was 1 cost. So you get that super early. It destroys, like, it just destroys early games. You take so much damage. Although with the 5 damage cap it would be less, but this thing was so toxic. Right? Like ETC would get it as well. It's just so much damage. So overall, it seems better in theme with what Jailer does now, right? Jailer's more just an undead hero. Gallywix change is very weird. I mean, it's kind of in theme, but it's not really what Gallywix wants to do. So this says end of turn, you get 1 extra gold. So essentially a strike oil per turn. Now I do like strike oil. The issue is that Gallywix doesn't really need more money. Gallywix needs to not die. And the previous buddy did that a lot better than this one. So the issue is that you don't need more money at that stage of the game. You need to stop people from taking your health. And just by casting strike oils, it doesn't really do that. So while it is in theme with Gallywix, I'm not quite sure if this works out. We'll see. So we're gonna have to figure it out. A lot of these things, guys, I make my predictions, but I'm just gonna have to play with it. I need to see how it feels. I need to see how fast is the meta, how are people leveling, right? There's a lot of variables we're gonna have to figure out together. Then we have Zorella's Buddy, which is a little confusing to me. The text here says, whenever you play a minion with less attack than this, give it 2/2 and improve this. So that would mean that we are giving that minion +2/+2, and then this gets improved. So then the next minion we give like 4/4, and then, and so on and so on. But then you just like need to keep the baby Alec around and like buff it. And now you have like, you need to keep giving this a lot of damage so that it's relevant, and then you get I don't know, like I guess it's like just some tempo where you can fill your board with stuff that gets +2, +4, +6, +8, but I don't see it right now, but maybe I'm missing something, so feel free to chime in the comments, like what I'm missing, how it's supposed to be used. Baby Yashiraj gets changed. You get less front-loaded tempo of just like, oh, I'm gonna get Yashiraj and then like boom, play 3/4 drops and stats, but it's much nicer, right? It's now more long term. Whenever you play a minion of your tier, all your minions get 1/1, so you can keep that around. You can repeatedly trigger that, so much nicer, much more fun. Sourfang now only gains half the stats, and that's still good with elementals, because man, I've played some ETC games where I pulled a Sourfang, and let me tell you, it's pretty good when your elementals are 100/100. So still getting half the stats is strong, but at least now it's not quite as egregious if you do end up in an elemental game with a Sourfang. Oh, they've done it, chat. For years, Pyramid Buddy was unable to properly be buffed because it did not have a type, and they've done it. They've given Pyramid Buddy a type. It's now an elemental. So you could golden that with like extra lava lanterns. So that's already something you have to think about. You could print this and make multiple Titanic Guardians. It says when a different minion in your hand or board gains health, this also gains it. So that's good for base skill, I guess, right? If you're running base skill and you're buffing something in your hand. But the wording here is important. It doesn't say another minion, it says a different minion. So that means that 2 Titanic Guardians do not interact with each other. Which that would just be infinite, right? One would gain it, the other one would gain it. But just the fact that it's an elemental now, it's a massive buff, right? You can get more of them much easier, and you can buff them like Ascendant, you can buff it. It gets buffed like any kind of menagerie buffs with Nala or something. So very interesting. Then we have Death Speaker Blackthorn. It's now a Quilboar Undead, and it's a tier 5 instead of a tier 6. So for the rest, not much changes here. That's okay. We're gonna see that there's some minions now that make this unit more relevant. So yeah, we'll talk about that in a moment. Syndragosa was changed to match the new hero power. At the end of your turn, make a random frozen minion in the tavern golden. Now, it is a tier 5, so it will take a lot longer to get than the previous version. But what you can do with this is it's end of turn. So it's not like Varden, where you have to like hope at the start of the turn that nothing messes up your hero power. This is just if you have 1 unit in the shop and it's frozen, you make it golden. So you guys already know what I'm doing with this. I'm freezing a brand, baby. Let's go with, yeah. And because minions only cost 2 to buy, it's a lot easier to force that. And you even have fewer minions in your shop to begin with. That's what the hero power says. So that is quite synergistic. Now the downside is on that is it does take you longer to roll a brand because you have fewer minions in your shop. But still, it's, you know, anytime you find something really good early, you just freeze it, make it golden. Next turn is woo, let's go. Then we have the Directar buddy is now end of turn, give your leftmost minion 10 attack. That's because they have the new hero power as well, which copies the minion with the most attack. So makes total sense. And then Vandar does the same thing. It gives the rightmost minion 10 health, which also synergizes really well with the hero power. So overall, really strong changes for Vandar and for Drekthar. It's nice. You know, those are not heroes we play very often. And then we have Maleficent's buddy. It's essentially just a mech beast, which will make it easier to reborn this. Now, unfortunately, this says, you know, deal 2 damage to a random enemy minion for each of your mechs that has died this combat. As you guys know, it's just like, it's 2 damage and then 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2. It's just not a lot, right? It takes too long. You can't really compete with boards that have, you know, thousands of stats, which is what people make, right? At high MMR, you fighting thousands of stats. So just imagine it'd be like 2 and 2 and 2 and 2. It's just, you don't get the thousands very quickly like that. So unfortunately, probably still not really that good, not really playable. We also have removed cards and new minions. So you might see some cards here that you don't even recognize anymore. Exceptional Caretaker is removed, but it was already removed earlier in more of a hotfix patch, or, you know, not a big patch. But it's listed here again. Arm is out, Urel is out. You know, Urel is really just more like a quest unit, right? To get stat increase. Rat Pack Phalanx, nothing really of note here that's leaving. Then here we have Carbonic Copy, which again, right, was already removed earlier. Zarina is, that's a pretty big one for mechs, but I mean, not like that crazy. No more Menace, no more Drakari, so a little harder to reborn. But I mean, the one that matters here is the Bristler, of course. Tier 4 Quillbore have dominated, absolutely dominated the last few weeks, especially after the big China versus Europe tournament, which I broadcasted on my channel. So if you're interested in those, check it out, the live odds. But that's all they did. They just stayed on tier 4. They played Hot Air Surveyor. They played Prophet. They put a lot of gems on Bristler and then copied it with Macaw, and it was broken. So good riddance. Good that that's out, because that was getting really boring. Unintended. Okay. Then no more Ignition, no more Vengeful Protectors, so you can't copy that one with low. Volcanic Visitor out. That was a really, you know, powerful tempo card, so I mean, it's okay. It was probably a little bit too strong. But probably out of this one, I would say it's Ignition and Volcanic Visitor that matter. No more early Wind Fury with the Paper Drake, but again, that was mostly for quests, right, where you would attack more often and stuff. And then we have returning cards. Pen Pal, that is just a wonderful minion to buy in Buddy Meta. Reduce the cost of your next buddy by 2. It's pretty much gain 2 gold. Like, not quite, but very, you know, if you fight these unethical boards, very often they made a golden pen pal. And that gave them -8 gold on their buddy button, which is stupid good. You can use this with Bran. Like, we're talking some serious acceleration on the turn you're getting your buddy. So yeah, this is pretty much a must buy. Very, very good early. Greymane is back. Every time you play an even tier card, give your even tier minions 1/1. So this is very good for APM stuff. Although I think bounties are all tier 3. So we're probably going to want to use the counterpart here, the Moon Eater's Champion, for APM, because you can get a lot of bounties with that. But the problem is that the Rogers is a tier 6. So yeah, whenever you're having these Greymane and Moon Eater, you always have to think about, like, how does this work? What can I keep? But we pretty much always find something. And every so often, there's also just like a giga broken thing that we find out, where it's like, oh man, if you have this board with the Moon Eater, it's so good. I think what we had, you had a card, the Draconic, which would give you a Spellcraft, which would trigger a Battle Cry. And you would do that with Moon Eater, and you would just cycle and get, you know, a crazy amount of stats, because you can get the odd minions super easily like that. All right, anyway, moving on. So that's just a nice tool for scaling. It's always fun to have these in the set. Skyfin is back. Meh. Okay, whatever. We know what this does, right? Murloc Dragon gives 1/1 with her battle cry. Prosthetic Hand is back, so that's another way to reborn undeads and mechs, which is why we saw the battle cry give undeads to or give reborn to an undead leave. So it's just a nice minion to have. Chameleon is back, and when I saw this, I couldn't believe it. I could not believe it, because at high level, the last few weeks of Chameleon being in the game, any game ended in big minion with 2 Chameleons next to it. And then the front of the board was just like taunted Mana Saber and stuff to just get the value. Because when this card came out, it was like, it's Avenge 5. It takes too long. It's like, how good is that really? But then people really caught on and realized, oh, all I need to do is create one nasty minion and give it all the buffs, right? So a very common thing was Hollow Rover. People would just like stack all their magnetics on the Hollow Rover and then just play like 2 Chameleons and copy that Hollow Rover, and now you have like 3 giant Hollow Rovers in the back. So very surprised that this is coming back. It's not changed at all, so yeah. I guess we're playing Chameleon again for a while. Maybe in the buddy meta it's different, but I can't see how. I mean, making a really good minion and then copying that's always been a good strategy. So yeah, we'll see how that plays out, but it's probably not very different in the past. Cultist is also back, so this was changed a while back. This used to summon it with all the enchantments, but again, like degenerate as we are, we used this with like Curator, Minion, and then we gave it Reborn, and it was Reborn and Venom, and then it would you could bring it back with the Cultist, and it would have Venom and Reborn, and it's just disgusting. So now it doesn't do that anymore. It just summons the demon with its maximum stats, which is still pretty good, right? You can still get a giant Urzel and use Cultist to get that back. We have Whelp Smuggler back as well. That's just a little bit of a support card for dragons. Generally not very impactful, but we're going to see a few things where it does matter. Dracosath is back, so I'll spoil it. Kaligos is also back, so these guys usually just go hand in hand. I like that. I like playing with Dracosath. I like playing with Kaligos. Even though Kaligos wasn't that good in the past few iterations, the fact that they gave it +1/+2, and honestly, when you're playing Kaligos, you're usually just playing with Bran, and there's a lot of mechanics to get more dragons. So you just end up with multiple Kaligos on your board, and then it's fine. But I'm not going to sit here and say it's a strong strategy, but it's a fun strategy. You get to cycle a lot of battle cries, and your board just goes boom, boom, buff, buff. So yeah, it's pretty good, pretty fun, this package. Master of Realities. Now this thing gets large. So this is already a potential thing to combo with Chameleon, where you use Pants on this to untaunt it. After a friendly elemental gains stats, gain 2/2. Now what you can do with this is you can have an amalgam, because an amalgam is an elemental but also something else, right? So you can use Whelp Smuggler on an amalgam, which means that every time it gains any kind of stats, it will also, or gains attack, sorry, so +1/+1 or so, it will also gain 2 health. Now this thing says whenever a friendly elemental gains stats, so each Whelp Smuggler trigger on that amalgam triggers the Master of Realities separately, and there's other ways you can still do this, right? So just keep in mind, like amalgam plus Master of Realities, tons of buffs on the amalgam, and then your master just goes really big. And then if Beast Terrain, we use Chameleon, we copy this bad boy twice, and that's a lot of stats on your board. Weary Mage is back, but the other spellcraft, Naga, the one on tier 3 that gives you 2 random spellcraft, it was changed, right, where they removed the coin spellcraft. So like this used to be broken, where you have Weary Mage with the other Naga, and then you just get so much. But I guess the fact that Weary Mage is back means you can get the Reborn spellcraft back, so that makes it a little bit better. But anyways, this was a really nice Naga when it was in. It wasn't that long ago, so I guess you guys still remember that. Cyclist is back, so that's part of that package, right? Reborn the Cyclist, play a lot of spells, and then buff. This never really took off, so I'm not really sure if it's gonna take off this time, but it's like an okay tempo thing that you played sometimes. Gem Splitter is back, so that's a unit that's been in the game for quite a while. Now, last time I think they changed it where it now has Divine Shield itself, which made it way better, way stronger. Now you're using that to farm gems, and you also have Rugok back. So now you can get a ton of gems in your hand with the Gem Splitter. You can put all the gems on Rugok, and they did not remove Hot Air Surveyor from what I can see. So that means that you can get a handful of gems with the Gem Splitter and a Rugog because they're shield. And then you have your Hot Air Surveyor and you just slam a bunch of gems on top of the Rugog. And if your gems are, decent sized, you're talking pretty massive scaling. So anytime you have something like Hot Air Surveyor and Rugog or Hot Air Surveyor and Agam, be on the lookout for some unethical Quillbore stuff. So we've just gone through a Quillbore meta. I hope it's not too strong, but I'm a little scared that those two combined are a little bit too good. And then we also have Cadaver Caretaker back on tier 3, like nothing too crazy, just works with overflow, and we're gonna see that Cadaver is back as well. Sorry to have them linked, but you know which one I'm talking about. We'll see him in a moment. Sandstone Drake is back. So this unit wasn't in the game for very long, but this works with Master of Realities, where at the end of your turn, gain 1 attack, repeat for every card you played. So you get a Sandstone, you play a ton of cards, you have Whelp Smuggler and stats, right? So very, that's nasty that that's an elemental and a dragon. You're going to be able to use that for Master of Realities. It's now a tier 3, but it only has 5 base attack, but that seems like a nice buff, right? You get it way earlier, and the fact that it loses some health is not that relevant. Should be able to buff the health on it quite easily, it being an elemental and a dragon. Bramble Witch is back. It's an elemental Quillbore. So yeah, I mean, this is a little bit funny, right? Because they're bringing it back at the same time they're bringing in Cultist. So it's like, here, taunt your huge Urzel and then resummon it, but also Bramble Witch. But in a demon lobby where there's no elemental, no Quillbore, it's gonna be pretty strong. But anytime you have Bramble Witch, it's like, don't hit it, don't hit it, don't hit it. So yeah, I mean, that's okay. It's a counter card, so it's fine to have that in the game. Sly Raptor is tier 3 and summons a 6/6 instead of tier 4 and summons a 7/7. Fine, whatever. And here we have Catacomb Crusher. That's what I was talking about. It now only does 1/1 instead of 2/2, but I think it started out at 1/1 and then they buffed it because it wasn't being played so much. So I guess, we'll see how good that is. We probably have some overflow. I guess Jailer, right? It's really nice with overflow. You can kill off your undead in the tavern phase. Yeah, but that archetype is back. I know a lot of you guys enjoyed playing that. We also have new cards, believe it or not. I was not joking when I said this is a giant patch, probably the biggest mid-season patch we've ever had. We have the Golem Archivist. Battlecry, the next tavern spell you buy costs 2 less. So we can already think about Othar and his buddy. That's nice, right? You get a little bit of a synergy there. You get to buy it, get a spell for free and duplicate it. But overall, it's just a nice little addition. It's a 4/4. It's like okay stat line. You play this, you get a Chef's Choice for free. Just seems like a really fun card to buy. Expert Technician. It's a tier 4, a taunt, and the death rattle is your leftmost minion attacks immediately. It attacks the minion that killed this immediately. So rally, leave, right? Because it would essentially reset the attack. So as long as your rally minion survives, your rally minion attacks, survives, they kill the technician, your rally minion attacks again. So think of repeated blood gem farming, think of more monstrosity buffing. So it seems like a really nice unit to end on, especially if you have Wind Fury on that rally minion. But again, the difficulty will be your rally minion needs to survive, right? Because if it's dead, it doesn't matter. But you'll always have a leftmost minion. I mean, unless this is the last one on your board, but that seems weird. So you'll get something. So even if your first rally card doesn't survive, you could have like 2 or 3 rally cards in the front. So it seems like a wonderful card to have in a monstrosity menagerie, or just any kind of board that relies on rally buffing. Friendly Bouncer seems like an amazing rally minion to have. This is a tier 4, and the rally is you get a rally minion in your hand, and you also summon it. Now I'm assuming that it just summons to the right of it, so that it also has a chance to attack and rally. I don't know yet, but that seems like very in theme, so I'm assuming that's where it's gonna position it. Yeah, I mean, it seems really good. I don't know what else to say. If you go to tier 4 early and your board isn't full yet, then you get this thing, and it actually gets the rally, like, that's very, very good. That's a very nice turn. Divine Sparkbot is Divine Shield, Taunt, and the Death Rattle, you get a Sanctify. So that's that 1-cost spell that buffs all the Divine Shields minions, gives it more attack. Now we see that Zarina was removed, so you can't just get a bunch of Sanctifies from this and then get even more attack with Zarina. but it almost removes the reason to have Zarina, because you'll just get so much attack with this, especially if you reborn it, which we know we can do, right? We have the prosthetic hand. You could have a Titus on the board. You could use Macaw on this. So it's just attack, but you know, mechs very often, they can get like top 4, top 2, even sometimes win the lobby just by having 300, 400 damage, right? Just have like Deflecto bots with 400 damage. Like that takes care of a lot. So probably decent, right, to have this. So it's a little hard to call, but seems decent. And then Super Constructor. It's a rally that buffs your tavern spells. So it's like the Whelp, Blue Whelp, but it gives 1/1 instead of 0/1. Now, Mech, Divine Shield, Reborn, Wind Fury. You can also use the Expert Technician, right? You can use Expert Technician to trigger it. Seems cool, right? So anything to boost tavern spells, it's great for your bounties, but also for Murloc's end of turn with Murkai, or again, anything, right? Like getting a bunch of shiny rings from that Naga dragon. So having a lot of tavern spell buffs is pretty much always nice. So yeah, seems like a nice unit to get early. And speaking of tavern spells, we also have the Ajaran Cutlassier, probably not Lessier, but Cutlassier, I don't know. Correct me in the comments, please. Battlecry your tavern spells that give stats also grant an extra +1 attack this game. That's great, because when you're playing pirates, you're very often starved for that attack, because you can cycle the Naga that gives +2 health. But now you can also cycle the pirate to get the attack. And if you have a Bran, that'll also be 2 attacks. So you're probably going to have far more attack now, because you could have Hooktail on the board. You play this guy. You get it from the bounty that generates pirates, because very often pirates is your most common type. Yeah, so lots of attack. I guess you can have Matriarch on the board to balance out the health a bit, right? Yeah, so Matriarch on the board for the health, cycle this. I'm just gonna call him the tier 3 pirate, and cycle the tier 3 pirate for the attack. Just a nice little thing to add on for pirates. It's also a 6/4 on tier 3, so you could just buy that and not feel bad about it, right? That'll hold its own on the board. And then our last card in this massive patch is Murky Splashfisher. Battlecry, get a copy of Murky's Fish, and we can see here that is the Murky's Fish. Give a Murloc 1/1, repeat for each Murloc you control. So spell power, we just talked about that, right? There's various ways to get more value from your spells. And this repeats. So let's say this is +10/+10. You repeat it, let's say 5 times, then you get 50/50, or I guess 60/60 if you repeat it. Now, we used to do this with Murkbrine Expeditioner. That card isn't in, or at least not from what I've seen. So it is a little capped, but this did remind me of the Seafood Stew Murkbrine play. But without Murkbrine, this is probably just going to be a lot of stats, but nothing unethical, I'm assuming. Because it's Murkbrine that was doubling up, or sometimes even more than that. That was way too good. And with that, we have reached the ending of this. I hope this was useful to you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Please consider liking the video, leaving a comment if it was. I'm very excited to play this. I don't know about you guys, but I will catch you next time. Have a good one.